In episode 7, Miranda takes her to a side alley at gunpoint and demands to know where the money is, but Cassie has no idea where the money is. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's just a flight attendant. Cassie continues to tell her, I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is that you're a homicidal maniac who killed Sabrina, killed Alex, probably killed more people. But Miranda says, what are you talking about? I didn't kill those people. You did. Cassie goes, I didn't kill them. Miranda or Elena or whatever your name is. And the name Elena really piqued Miranda's interest. She said, how do you know that name? And Cassie goes on to explain how it was on the database. And at that moment, Miranda realizes, holy shit, she really is just a flight attendant. So Miranda puts the gun away and they go to get coffee and talk about this whole situation, with Cassie telling her, I know about lionfish, I know about the smuggling weapons, I know all of it. Miranda tells Cassie that a few weeks before, she met Alex for drinks and started complaining about her boss and probably mentioned the smuggling operation. Alex was pretty shocked and angry because he had no idea that he was working with criminals. The guy was a Boy Scout. He was kept in the dark about Unisphere by his parents. When he found out about all of this, he hid a bunch of his clients' money and then flew off to Bangkok, where he ended up dead. Miranda found Alex in Bangkok looking to recoup the money. And he felt like the money was kind of like insurance, because if he had it, they couldn't kill him. Boy, was he wrong. Miranda's pretty sure that Victor is behind all of this. Victor probably hired that goon to kill her in her car once he found out that she had stayed in New York. And he probably used this guy named Felix, who apparently is a psychopath, to kill Alex, and that guy also killed Sabrina and the FBI agent. Cassie's a little freaked out and realizes that she needs a plan on how to stay alive. And even though they're fighting, she feels like Annie could help out. She texts Annie outside of the hospital to meet her downstairs, but while they're waiting, she gets a call from Buckley. Buckley's been bailed out of prison and calls her up to talk to her. He tells her that he really wants to see her, and he once again mentions running away together. He said it as a joke, but he was kind of serious. She tells him, I like you a lot, but I only call you when I'm drunk or sad. And that's not good. My life is a lot right now, and I need to make different choices. She tells him, 2 weeks ago, I would have thought this was perfect, but I think we gotta stop before we get started. And Buckley takes the heartbreak pretty hard. The good news is Annie has come downstairs to meet up with Cassie. Cassie profusely apologizes to Annie for everything. And Annie, who is still in an extremely fragile state, accepts her friend's apology. She even apologizes to Cassie a little bit, saying that she should have listened to her when she was making all these accusations. This conversation, though, does get interrupted by Miranda because they're short on time. And Cassie introduces Miranda to Annie, and Annie is shocked that Miranda is actually a real person. Cassie tells her that Miranda knows that Alex was killed over stolen money, which exonerates her. So, in exchange for Miranda's help, they need Annie to negotiate protection for Miranda. And even with all the information that Miranda knows about lionfish, weapon smuggling, it's going to be tough to negotiate immunity. I mean, she's broken the law every which way, including that whole murder thing. Cassie can't understand why Annie can't help her out. She helps out all those mob wives, but the murder thing is really tough to get around. Oh, and also the fact she left the firm, so that's a hiccup. Cassie begs her for help, anything you can do, and eventually Annie says, okay, you know what, you're right, I'm still a lawyer. Might take a little time, but we'll figure something out. She tells them both to go to a hotel and lay low while she makes some phone calls. But Miranda lets Cassie know if we sit in a hotel, Felix is going to find us and kill us, so that's not really an option. Miranda's plan is to flee the country, which Cassie absolutely hates, but Miranda lets her know, if Victor finds out that Annie is helping us, Victor's going to come after her too. She tells Cassie, go tell Annie something now, or I'm going to leave you behind. So Cassie walks up to her, tells her that she should check into that hotel under a fake name, and promises that she'll stay safe, knowing the whole time that it's a lie. Miranda and Cassie then head to a church. They need to meet one of Miranda's contacts to set this whole deal up. But Cassie gets a call from Davey. Davey's really just checking up on her, but Miranda grabs the phone, hangs up on Davey, and then turns off Cassie's location services. They then walk into another room of the church, and it ends up being an AA meeting because Miranda's contact is leading the AA meeting. And an AA meeting is something that Cassie is not ready for. She doesn't think she has a problem, although they're not really there for that. And while listening to this, she has a little bit of a meltdown. Everybody in the AA meeting turns into Alex, who is staring at her because she's freaking out, and she runs out of the place like a crazy person. Although everywhere she turns, she's having more hallucinations until finally she goes in that headspace with Alex, and you find out where a lot of this stuff comes from. The rabbits, the dead deer, and it had to do with a drinking excursion with her father where he was driving drunk and he hit another car and ended up dying at the scene. It was a traumatic experience for Cassie, who really doesn't want to be there, but she's facing this fear. She tells dead Alex that she had never told anybody this, but she always blamed herself for that moment, even though she had nothing to do with it. She blamed herself because she was her dad's drinking buddy. She feels like if she wasn't there, her dad wouldn't have been driving drunk because he only drank like that when he was with her. Even though Dead Alex is trying to tell her that it's not her fault, it's just something she's always lived with, that guilt. She breaks down with Dead Alex, saying that she runs away from everything and she no longer wants to feel like this anymore. When she gets out of that headspace, she's in another room in the church, sitting by herself when Miranda catches up with her. Cassie apologizes to Miranda for getting out of there, but says, well, what if we don't flee the country? And Miranda says, then we're going to die. Cassie tells Miranda there's got to be something we can figure out because I've been running my entire life. I'm done running. Miranda sits down and says, eventually Felix is going to catch up with you. And believe it or not, I don't want to see you dead. But Cassie isn't buying that speech because she knows that deep down, Miranda's telling her this because Miranda still believes that Cassie's going to lead her to the money. And you know what? Cassie's right. The only option to save them is to get the money back. Cassie tells Miranda, I don't exactly remember a bunch of money in that hotel room, even though I was blitzed. And Miranda tells her it's not going to be actual money. It's going to be in an encrypted account, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, something like that. And with the help of Miranda, Cassie remembers the book, Crime and Punishment, and how Alex was writing notes in the margins, which was really weird. So the two rush off to grab the book. And sure enough, when Cassie hands over the book, there's accounts and encryption code written there. But they don't have time to celebrate because Felix is hot on their tail. He's trying to break into the apartment, and it forces the two to flee out of the fire escape. And when Miranda is forced to jump on another rooftop ledge and hide, she realizes that she left the book behind on the other rooftop. And they can't exactly go back and pick it up because Felix has it now. Miranda kind of starts to panic a little bit, saying that now that Felix has the book, Victor has the book, which means that they're both dead. But Cassie isn't willing to give up. And while doing this little mini speech about how she's not going to give up, Miranda cuts her off and says, let me tell you about Felix. He's killed women, he's killed children, and when he was young, everybody at his boys' school was terrified of him because he gutted a bunch of cats and hung them from a tree. And that story sounds extremely familiar to Cassie. And when she peeks around the corner, her worst fear is true. Felix is actually Buckley, the weird cat guy who she was sleeping with. And after Felix finally leaves, the two rush to a convenience store because Cassie is in bad need of alcohol. She's got to process the fact that she was sleeping with and talking to, and pretty close to running away with, a certified psychopath. They need to come up with a plan. And the good news is, Felix is a creature of habit. There's also the fact that Felix doesn't know that Cassie now knows that he's Felix, which also helps. So Miranda comes up with a plan to basically use Cassie as bait. She's going to go on her Rome trip, and on that flight, Miranda will be right there. She's going to act like normal, and when she checks in her hotel room, that's when Felix usually strikes. Only this time, Miranda will be waiting for him. And while it's extremely dangerous because Cassie is used as bait, she doesn't really have another choice. Now, over with Annie, when she returned from her conversation with Cassie, Max had woken up. She tells Max that she loves him. He says, am I your boyfriend now? It's a really adorable moment. Start talking about what happened with Cassie. Annie tells Max that she can't find Cassie because Cassie turned off her location services. She's worried that Cassie is pulling just some weird Cassie shit. She wants to help and then remembers that Cassie wouldn't shut up about this Hello Kitty flash drive that she couldn't find. So Max tells her exactly where he was hit by the car, and when she heads there, sure enough, in one of the gutters, there's a Hello Kitty flash drive. The only issue is she can't reach it, so she has to pay kids $20 to grab it for her. Over with the FBI, Agent Hammond continues to look into Lionfish to find a connection, but she's coming up with dead ends. And Agent White thinks that she's wasting her time because Cassie Bowden is the clear perpetrator of all of this. He also thinks that she's cracking because of the police files that he pulled up about Drunk and Disorderly. Then they start to wonder, wait, why didn't we hear about this from the FBI agent who is tailing them? And then they realize they haven't heard from him in a while, but he's kind of flaky, so it fits his brand a little bit. Later in the day, they get word that Bangkok police has reconstructed the bottle, and they think they've got a print. They don't have a match for the print in the tie system, so they're going to send it to the FBI. And Agent White is basically patting himself on the back. He is convinced that it's Cassie, although Hammond still isn't so sure. They still haven't found that missing FBI agent, but in the meantime, they put another one to look after Cassie's apartment for when she shows back up. And then finally, Megan's worst fears about her husband having to go in to look at a computer issue are true. He tells her that there's been a security breach, and it came from his computer, and they're pretty positive that he's the one who did it, but he didn't do it. Megan starts to freak out a little bit, wondering why this would even be an issue, knowing that she's full-on guilty, and that's when he tells her something that she had no idea. His company does government contracts. He throws out, "You're the only one that used it besides me," and when Megan doesn't give him anything back on the phone, he starts to get suspicious. And when she tries to cover that up, she just sounds guilty. He finally gets the guts to ask her, "Did you do this?" And she says, "You know I just want the best for us, right?" And this betrayal of trust leaves him shell-shocked, and he just hangs up on Megan, who, after her son leaves, goes over, grabs a pad of paper, and starts writing a note. Thank you so much for watching this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Like the video if you liked it. Hit thumbs down if you thought it sucked. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up soon. And please be nice in the comments section. Nobody likes being told they suck, even if it's true. Oh, and sharing's caring.